All right, guys, it is time to cram, and we have a special guest joining us today. It's not just me and my bullshit messing with the Sims. We have a true showdown thought leader joining us. Cody Main, let's do this.
I suffer from a debilitating condition known as atrophic chokitis.
Peter's one of the greatest depositors I've ever seen.
Trust the process. Let's go. Let's go.
I got auto match with Levitan. This is bullshit.
If I just go the other way in that 66, I win all the money. All the money.
If I had 150 lineups, I'd win too.
Process over results.
Illuminati make a bitch go crazy. I don't know which one of these my baby. Bust out AP, cross 5 bullets in your head like KD. Bust it, bitch go bust it. And I had 10 pints with me in Russia.
Hey everyone.
Cody Main, showdown thought leader over at Establish the Run, part of my every showdown slate process, reading your article over there. First time, I believe, on the channel over here. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, man. I mean, looking back through DMs, the last time that we even considered doing a show together, I was literally in the delivery room having my third and hopefully my last child. So we didn't get to make that work. This is the first time.
Yeah, I noticed when I DM'd you, I saw that old DM. That was like last year in the playoffs, probably,
Yeah.
right? January.
Conference championship week. Yep.
See, and that's how I was like, I can't have this guy, back on when he has a newborn, even an infant. I was like, let's wait till it's about 10 months old and then we can circle back.
Perfect. If we can do this once every year, I think we're on a good track.
That's right. And as Mathology posted out, I mean, you are the best hoodie model I have ever seen for us. The Don't Dupe Me Bro, your photo that is on the thumbnail. I mean, I couldn't even hire a better Don't Dupe Me Bro model than you, Cody.
I haven't taken this hoodie off since I got it. I'm not removing this hoodie for a showdown slate until I ship one of these solo. Like I obviously can't be duped. So it's starting to smell. I might need to order a new one. But no, it's like 10 straight showdown slates and I've had this bad boy on. So
Are you
I
serious?
appreciate it. Yeah, dead serious.
That's hilarious.
It's no bullshit.
They are incredibly comfy hoodies.
Great hoodies. Great hoodies.
I will say too, I got the link down below if you guys want to Don't Dupe Me Bro hoodie. A couple of my tips though, when you do wash it, I tie a little knot on that. Did you hear me say that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because the drawstring, I noticed though, I forgot to do it one time and it went right through. And then my only other tip is I normally do it on a low heat when I dry stuff. But I have heard from some people who just fucking cranked up the heat that they did shrink the teeniest bit. So those are my 2 washing hoodie pro tips out there.
Yeah, and if you're in your basement grinding and drinking alcohol and eating all of the worst kinds of foods, then you don't need something that's tight fitting.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so we got the lucky hoodie on. We have a very fun game, and I feel like we need to cherish this game tonight because we have a 54-point over-under, by far the best over-under the slate. Some might even call it a mouth-watering over-under. But on top of that, we have all this COVID shit bearing down on us, a slate with a bunch of games that are just getting decimated right now. I mean, this is the crown jewel of week 15, right?
Yeah, I mean, what is happening right now in the league is absolutely nuts. And for this game to be relatively free of COVID issues is incredible. And the fact that it's a Thursday night showdown slate and we don't have to deal with Ben Roethlisberger and Kirk Cousins and in Case Keenum and all of these trash quarterbacks. We have 2 of the absolute best in the league going at it in the 54-point total, a tight spread, awesome skill position players. Yeah, we truly need to cherish this slate. Yeah.
And everyone, just relax. We're going to run the Sims and stuff, but I also want to take advantage of having Cody on and hear a little bit about his DFS process for Showdown, what kind of contest stuff you're normally playing. So right at the top, I know you mentioned to me that you're normally building your lineups or finishing when I'm recording. Are you maxing the big tournament most weeks? Are you playing single entry? Are you the full on opto bro? Where are you at?
So I'm not maxing the big one. I'm getting my entries in there just so I can kind of track the data in the big one, because that's, what most people care about. But I'm kind of approaching this similarly to you. I'm doing all of the $3.20 maxes, the $5, $15, the $20, that kind of range. What I'm really looking for is just like large field size, right? Regardless of if it's 3 max, 20 max, single entry, because I think they all kind of set up similarly. And then my lineups are just kind of at the mercy of the equals rand function. I'm just running an MME set for all of them, and I will have some batshit crazy lineup undoubtedly in a single entry tournament. But that's just the way that I've chosen to play. I think that my edge isn't really in like picking the right players, but more so in just kind of building unique lineups that if they do get towards the top, they're going to be unique and hopefully not duplicated and give me a shot at like a solo ship.
See, I'm the exact same way because I come on this show and I try to get a lot of the content too. I know a lot of our guys are playing the smaller field stuff, which I highly recommend. I'm just at peace with the showdown stuff. Like I'm okay punting off $150 the showdown slate to try to bank, a $3 $100,000 prize or $25,000 prize, I should say. And so I looked at my lineups tonight and I was like, I don't know who Michael Burton is, Cody, but I have Michael Burton in one of my lineups.
I don't think people realize like what type of bankroll you have to be comfortable playing these slates properly, which means you're going to be losing a lot and like max entering the $10 or the $20 tournament. Like it's a massive loss until you finally hit. And then it all pays itself off. But yeah, I can't roll out, $3,000 on a Thursday night slate when I'm playing guys like Michael Burton.
I know. Let's get into it right now. So with this slate, the things that jumped out to me when I ran the Sims a few minutes ago, and we'll pull it up here on the screen. Keenan Allen looks like a very good captain to me. He's showing up in our Sims 20% of the time. I'm seeing an average ownership of around 10 to 11%. So that looks good. And then the big flex play that I'm seeing that looks really nice is Darrell Williams. He's showing up in our Sims 36% of the time, average ownership around 23%. So those look like, my quote unquote flag plant plays. Please don't sue me. ETR, what is your snap take on those? Just whether that's hand in the dirt kind of stuff from your research on those two guys.
Yeah, I think Darrell sets up really well in certain types of game environments, and this might be one of them with the Chiefs the Chargers high powered offense and being able to push the Chiefs like we haven't really seen them pushed in the last couple of weeks. We know Darrell Williams is going to get the pass down work. He's playing long down and distance. He's playing 2-minute snaps. He's going to be on the field when Mahomes is throwing the ball. So this is one of the rare offenses that can actually push this team. We saw them just absolutely bludgeon the Raiders last week and not really necessarily need either Darrell Williams or CEH or really anyone else on the offense. So if you're expecting this thing to be close, go close to that 54-point total, maybe even the Chargers to pull off an upset, you're going to get plenty of Darrell Williams opportunities. So I absolutely love that from a flex perspective. And as far as Keenan, at captain, I mean, massive volume. His skill set sets up really well, obviously, on sites like DraftKings. And then if Ekeler's truly limited, Keenan's been a beast when Ekeler's been out, when Ekeler's been limited, he gets even more targets. And I think the absolute bull case for Keenan is that Ekeler is limited and you get more of those red zone opportunities funneling to Keenan. And maybe he, does his usual 10 catches for around 100 yards, but finds his way into the end zone too.
Yeah, for sure. And as far as, late breaking news, we didn't get a ton. We had Larry Roundtree as a scratch, maybe that shifted just a little bit of stuff with Joshua Kelly. But as far as, the stuff I always talk about, as far as, input volatility, our recent buzzword around here, what would you say are kind of the most volatile inputs? I think we probably have to lead with Ekeler, right?
Yeah, you definitely start there. We took down his rushing share a good bit, left him with some of the pass work. He's not like an every down back anyway. And we had this situation recently with Dalvin Cook, obviously different injuries, different reports, but then Dalvin Cook went out and played his normal role. And we're going to get really low ownership on, one of the game's best players, one of the game's best running backs. So it really depends on how you want to handle that. But I think if you want to take kind of an approach where maybe it's some gamesmanship, maybe he gets the injection before the game and he looks fine and gets closer to his normal workload. Or even if not, maybe he just plays that pure pass down work and he still gets peppered with 8, 9, 10 targets, runs hot on touchdown efficiency. And then you've got a really good play at pretty low ownership, especially given the 10-2 price tag. So I think if you're looking at input volatilities, if you feel confident that Ekeler's going to get closer to a normal workload than expected, you're going to come away with really nice ownership on him.
Yeah, and he's an interesting one because when I was, we have the RTS ownership in here, but then I like to grab a few sources for ownership, including ETR, and he looks like he might be over-owned as a captain relative to how much he is appearing in our sims. But then as a flex play, he actually looked okay to me. I was seeing around 28%. You guys are actually much lower on his ownership. So you guys had him at 20%. And I'm seeing, another source, 35%. We have him here in our projections. Where am I? Sorry, I got lost in my own stuff here. At a 31%. Where do you think he comes in? It sounds like you guys think he's going to come in lower.
Yeah, here's the thing with the way that this slate sets up specifically. I would be shocked if he got to those levels, just given the players that are priced around him and the way the slate sets up with jamming in or trying to jam in both quarterbacks and then really punting it off with some of these 2K, 3K players that we'll talk about. But like Darrell Williams, Justin Jackson, Byron Pringle, even to some degree, are going to make a lot of sense. So those guys allow you to kind of get the better projected higher price players. Obviously, that starts with Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes, but even Keenan and Tyreek and Travis Kelce, I think all look better given the price tags and given their projections. So I just have a tough time with the reporting the way it is and with the other options we have on the slate. I just have a tough time seeing the ownership getting too out of hand. 20 to 25% seems to be kind of a good range for me. And, these are kind of the type of things that you really need to break your way to ship one of these things.
Was there, I haven't been monitoring Twitter the past hour or so since inactives came out. Was there any, pregame warm up Austin Ekeler tweets or anything updating kind of that report earlier this morning?
I haven't seen anything new, but I think that the Larry Roundtree inactive is kind of low key, a little bit of a boost for Ekeler and his ability to handle more closer to a normal workload. I certainly expect them to mix in Jackson and Kelly a little bit more, but if they were really concerned about his health, you would have to think that they would have Roundtree active. So I'm kind of erring towards him being a little bit closer to normal, especially as a pass catcher. We know he's kind of one of those true difference-making running backs in terms of his pass catching ability. And then maybe they just lean on that Justin Jackson, Josh Kelly group for the early down grinder work.
Yeah, for sure. And we can take a look at this is obviously, we haven't messed with any inputs, implied team totals, all of that stuff. Seeing a decent amount of balanced lineups, a lot of 2-4s, 3-3s. I guess we can find some 1-5s in here, featuring the Chiefs. It does seem like there's more value on the Chiefs side than there is on the Chargers side. What do you think is going to be, I know in the ETR article, you always write up kind of like projected build type projections. Do you think anyone's getting funneled to anything specifically tonight?
This has definitely changed since the Austin Ekeler report. The last time I ran this was last night. I unfortunately won't have a chance to update it again before lock, but last night it looked like the 2-4 Chargers heavy builds were really, really low owned, given the way that this game set up, being 3-point home dogs and, the second division game and the offensive firepower that they have. But I think you're going to get a little bit more 2-4 now that you have Justin Jackson available at a cheap price tag. I think you'll see more teams kind of funnel that way, but it's still going to be pretty low owned. I didn't set too many like super strict rules for tonight's slate. I'm kind of just letting the ETR projections do what they will, and then grouping out or removing some lineups that I think are going to be pretty duplicated. But one rule that I did force, or one group that I did force, I have 30% of my total MME pool tonight dedicated to those 2-4 Chargers heavy builds. So yeah, I think that's one way that I'm planning on going, and just hoping that they kind of run away with this, and not even so much run away with it, but just beat the Chiefs outright.
Yeah, and so when you say those type of builds, so we look at this one that appears here, 11 frequency in our 10,000 simulations: a Keenan captain, CEH, Mike Williams, Justin Jackson, Justin Herbert, Travis Kelce. Like, that looks like a pretty sound and probably a pretty popular lineup to me.
Yeah, agreed. I do think like in these lineups where it's just jamming in the best Chargers plays, you're going to either have to get a little bit different by looking a little bit lower down the board, or just getting a little bit off of the KC chalk and hoping someone else from that side comes through as the 2 side in those type of lineups.
Oh, and man, this is a perfect example. So I've had the conversation on here a lot of times about the difference between product ownership and cumulative ownership. And look at these two lineups right here, back to back. They're both Keenan Allen. They're both 4-2 Chargers. The one we just discussed. The second one has Byron Pringle and Joshua Kelly in it. Joshua Kelly instead of Justin Jackson, Byron Pringle instead of, the combo of CH Travis Kelce. You see the sum own, the cumulative own is almost identical. And yet the product own is significantly lower because we have pieces like Pringle and Kelly that are far less owned than that. And to me, this is like a very instructive example of why product ownership is such a better indicator of don't dupe me, bro territory.
Exactly. And you look at the rest of the metrics on that particular lineup in terms of the sim average total, the salary, the ownership, everything looks the exact same except for that product ownership. That second lineup will be so much less duplicated than the first one that you mentioned, and has equal opportunity to ship this thing. So that's kind of the decisions that you're making on these slates, is sacrificing a little bit, kind of plugging your nose and selecting some of these plays that you don't feel as good about, but are going to give you a much higher chance of just getting this first place alone without anybody else sharing it with you.
I do want to talk to you about kickers, because you've had some tweets about that, and the sims, our sims over here do not seem to like the kickers. So let's talk about that. But Mathology is our resident double defenses, double Ds around here. This guy, if anyone loves double Ds more than Mathology, I would be surprised. Sometimes we bully the optimizer into low scoring games to get double Ds in here. Any viability for you tonight with double Ds, because they do help get you unduped.
I mean, full disclosure, I am an ass man, so double Ds aren't exactly for me. But I mean, the thing is, like, if you're just looking to avoid dupes and you just want to get different, no one's playing both defenses. I've never like actively grouped out both defenses together, but I've also never actively forced it in. Just looking at like how historical top 1% lineups do over the past couple of years, I think the one rule that you would want to make, especially if they project well, or if the sims or your optimizer is trying to jam in the highest projected plays. I think one group that I'm consistently using is just max 2 kickers defense. Like if you have a kicker and 2 defenses in your lineup, you're just sacrificing so much ceiling, even if they project well and allow you to get the highest projected players. But if double Ds helps you get unique, then go for the double Ds, man.
Yeah, and so I just was messing around here, which is something we do on the show a lot. I changed this to a 17-10 game. Like, God forbid, right? Like, no one wants this to happen. We don't want this to happen, but this shit does happen.
Yeah.
And you can notice right here, shout out to Mathology, like we can get your double Ds appearing in this lineup that appears 10 times in 10,000 simulations. Keenan Allen, Travis Kelce, Mike Williams, Justin Herbert, studs, but including Los Angeles Chargers, Kansas City Chiefs. So, if you play this as a low scoring game, and you can tell, look at the product ownership on this. I mean, 2.8. I mean, this is how you're going to get unique. And I know, and I'm sure you've done this as well. Like when I've looked at top pros, I've often looked at Osimo's lineups. Like he's constantly running double defense, 2 defense and a kicker, 2 kickers in a defense. Like that is generally a way to get very unique.
Yeah, and for the guys that are chasing the first overall payout in these 200,000 entry fields, like that's one way to do it. And when they're going to be low owned like this is the time to do it. The thing that drives you absolutely insane, as someone that talks about this, is when the defenses project for like 30% ownership and 9% captain ownership, and people are just jamming them in. We'd have no idea. We're so bad at projecting defensive scoring that like if you get confident on a defense, that's probably the time that you should avoid using them, right? Because when the field's confident, there's really no correlation between ownership and fantasy production at the defensive spot. So if they're going to be low owned, it makes a lot of sense. If they're going to be high owned, I'm trying to avoid it.
Yep. I'm the exact same way. And it does seem tonight, Chiefs in flexing around an average ownership of 11%, Chargers around 9%. And they tend to be about, break even plays, Chargers appearing in our sim 12% of the time, Chiefs appearing around 10%. So it's not like you're getting it in bad with those tonight relative to ownership. I think you just need to be thoughtful about overall construction. And kind of speaking of that point, I saw you had a tweet the other night about kickers in Showdown, and our sims tend to not like kickers. And I talked to Justin about this a few months back, and part of it has to do with the way these sims are handling correlation, and kickers just tend to not correlate with other positions and how games play out. So while we will have kickers sprinkled in throughout these lineups, they won't appear as frequently as other plays that correlate. Obviously, defenses correlate better with low scoring games and running back performances. So how do you think through that? Because as you mentioned in your tweet, we do need to consider kickers in those outlier performances in some cases.
I think the biggest mistake that we often have when projecting kickers is that, and projecting these low price players in general, is that we expect an absolute ceiling out of them to land in winning lineups, even as a flex. We don't necessarily need 20 or 25 out of everyone. We don't need a 99th percentile outcome out of every player in our lineup. So if you get these games where the kickers have a few field goals, score a few extra points, and it's 12 or 13 or 14, that's when they can start to sneak in optimal lineups. And I think that, like, just like generically speaking, and I haven't talked to Leone about this at all, but I think at ETR, we're accounting for them we project them to account for more of the team's total than you see elsewhere. Like, consistently when I'm doing ownership projections, and obviously point per dollar projection and fantasy points is a huge input in that model, like, we're almost always over industry standard on where the kickers project. And so because of that, I've gotten them in my lineups quite a bit. And historically, they've been, pretty good plays. They, even in these high total games, like this one over 50, they're landing in winning lineups or top 1% lineups at a 30% clip. So yeah, I think it's the problem is, like you mentioned, and Justin mentioned, it's really tough to predict who they're going to go off with and when they're going to go off. So it is kind of one of those things where you're just plugging them in, not knowing the exact proper way how to correlate them with the rest of your lineup.
Yeah. And that is the tough thing. And it's, in the Discord channel, I normally do an early look where I look at the sims relative to, ownership around the industry. And every time in the flex, I'm like, all right, showing negative ownership, Dustin Hopkins and Harrison Butker appearing in the sims, 8.5% of the time and 6% of the time, respectively. Projected ownership, Dustin Hopkins, 19%, Harrison Butker, 19%. And it's like every single time I'm like, kickers, so I don't end up with them a ton, just the way the sims run. And it is a tough thing where it's like, I think you could maybe pick your spots, like you said, like if we ever get closer to where the field isn't quite as confident in those plays. But like, even when you look, and I can even just pull up here real quick, the ETR projections here, you can see that the kind of things you're dealing with is, can Jared Cook, Byron Pringle, Justin Jackson, Hardman, can they outscore these kickers? Because they do project, at least for you guys, more than some of those other punt options.
And that's what you're looking for, right? You need them to outscore the players that they're priced around, or just fit in within the construction of the lineup that you're building. So can a $4,000 Harrison Butker kick 4 field goals and outscore a Darrell Williams who doesn't score a touchdown? Absolutely. Just projecting those spots is extremely difficult, and we're going to be wrong quite often. And it just looks, it when you can correlate your lineups with somebody like a pass catching running back with your captain quarterback or something like that, it makes a lot more sense to put him in there than it does to put in just a random kicker.
Yeah, for sure. And this is the thing too. With all the stuff, like you said, you and I are playing a lot of the 20 max and the more lotto type stuff. And, if you're hand building, I think there might be more room for that. But it does seem there's also a thing too, where if it's a bit of a more name brand kicker, like if you're getting a Harrison Butker or a Justin Tucker, like those guys are getting boosted way more than they should.
When you see them at like 36, 37, 38% ownership in these large field tournaments, you're like, what led you to that? So it's again, one of those things, like with defenses, when they're going to be lower owned. And this might be a slate where they are, honestly, because we do have those guys in that 2 to 3K range with Pringle and Justin Jackson and Darrell Williams. Like, those guys are going to catch plenty of ownership. It might be one of those slates where we're a little bit over projecting their ownership. And you do get like Dustin Hopkins at pretty low ownership. So, I'm definitely not against it, but it is one of those things where I would just rather be doing what the field is not doing.
So I'm curious too, because I know you mentioned a lot of kind of maybe the optimizer rules that you'll have for your lineups, or you'll mention like, hey, I'm not going to force out, only one chief running back in my lineup and stuff. And, part of why I've definitely enjoyed The Sims is because it's theoretically, handling those kind of correlations for me. How do you think through correlations, which are important, but also knowing there's so much variance on a one game showdown slate that sometimes those rules just doesn't fucking matter. And you could have 3 running backs in the
Right.
winning lineup from the same team. Like if that Chiefs Raiders game was on the showdown slate,
Oh,
I'm guessing the optimal had all 3 Chiefs running backs.
yeah, I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did with Derek Gore getting 9 carries in garbage time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think one thing that I have gotten better was a huge leak was like trying to, and this is something you could have done in 2019 and had a lot of success, was just forcing optimal correlation. And when the games played out your way, the way that you were projecting, then you were going to be at the top of leaderboards, and people just weren't doing that enough back then. Now it's so much more about like maximizing uniqueness because people are playing the games the right way. If you have a captain quarterback, people are obviously going to pair him with two pass catchers from the same team. If you have a pass catcher at captain, teams are pairing them with their quarterback. Teams are grouping out defense versus, captain, wide receiver, and running back. So I would say if I've done anything well, it's probably just relaxing those groups, if anything, and understanding that I'm playing lineups that aren't likely to hit. But, as we always say, when it does, I'm going to get paid off in a big way. So I've been a lot less stringent on the groups that I'm setting. I'm just trying to think through like price and projection and overall ceiling. Like, a slate like tonight would be a whole lot different if CEH was 8,600 and Darrell Williams was 5,400, right? That might be like a group that I actually do set to max 1 because it's unlikely that they both land in a lineup, winning lineup at their combined salary. But at 7K and 3,200, combined for 10-2, it's certainly possible and likely that they land in a winning lineup together. So that's not a group that I'm setting tonight, and it really just kind of is not to take a cop out answer, but a slate by slate decision on terms of just understanding how players interact with one another and how their ceilings interact with one another.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a ton of sense too. And we say this about a lot of stuff on the main slate, but this is so true on Showdown. I mean, your contest size matters so much. I mean, the big contest tonight, I assume you're in it, the big $3. I believe it's 157,000 entries. And then I also registered for one of the later 20 max sets that they added with like 17,000. And my lineups look completely different. And just to give you an idea, like in that 20 max set, like I have a lot of lineups that appear in our sims with a frequency of 7 or 8 times over the course of 10,000 sims. Whereas in the 158,000 one, the lineups I have in there are mostly 2, maybe 3 times frequency. Like I am sacrificing a ton of projected points. I'm leaving a ton of salary on the table. I'm playing the fucking Chiefs fullback, but because we know that the only way to be profitable in this over the course of a very long-term duration, all of us playing showdown slates until we're in the retirement home, is to make sure you're not duplicated in those contests.
Yeah, and a lot of people like single entry. A lot of people like the lower entry 3 maxes and just a little bit higher dollar buy-in. And you often get asked those questions like, how do you need to be unique in these contests? And sometimes it's as simple as like a 2v2. Sometimes it's as simple as just fading the highest owned captain. But in these mega contests with 150,000 plus entries, you have to get really weird. And there's a variety of ways to do that, whether it's with salary or product ownership or just your macro roster construction or some of the pairings that you're using. Like there's no one right answer on how to build unique plus EV lineups for large field tournaments on Showdown.
Yeah. Let's answer a couple questions, and then I just decided Cody and I are going to build a winning Millie Maker lineup. I normally don't play the Millie. I just registered because Cody and I are going to win that, and I think it'll be a great story, and the community will love it. But real quick here, so a couple questions. James says, if I'm playing Mahomes in the flex, should I include at least 1 or 2 wide receivers tied in with him? And I assume kind of James is hinting at, hey, if I played him in the captain, I definitely include it, but I guess he's maybe hinting at, are there scenarios where you would play Mahomes naked in the flex?
I suppose if it gets like super spread out, right? But I still think that if you've got Mahomes in the flex, you probably want to pair him with at least one pass catcher. I guess what you're hoping for in that situation is that he's literally throwing it to everybody. But even if he gets like a touchdown to Byron Pringle, he's probably going to land in the optimal lineup. So I think you probably want a rule in that situation to pair him with at least one pass catcher.
And let's hit one more here. The losers win again, saying, any love for Demarcus Robinson with no Josh Gordon? Did the Josh Gordon inactive change anything for you with the projections? Because I know you wrote about, Pringle has been kind of separating from the Hardman Robinson group, but any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think Pringle's going to catch quite a bit of ownership. He's running a route on like 69% of dropbacks, has like a 10% target share, and he's really cheap. I think he's 2,600 if I remember right. But I don't think near as many people are going to play Robinson or McCole Hardman, who is really expensive for what he's produced. So I think the Josh Gordon news is actually kind of low key good for both of those guys if it leads to more snaps. I side with Hardman, as bad as that sounds, at the 5K price tag. I think he's going to be even lower owned, and he is a guy that's proven when he's gotten the playing time recently, he is getting targeted, and he theoretically still has the skill set to break one. So yes, I am playing a fair amount of Demarcus Robinson, but I also like Mecole Hardman just as a way to get unique with those Chiefs pass catchers.
For sure. All right. It's time for Cody and I'm just going to preface this right now. So Cody and I mean, Cody's literally wearing a hoodie that says, don't dupe me, bro. We're both very willing to be off the wall, to be unduped. We're going to build a Millie Maker lineup here. There are 133,000 people in this lineup. Cody, are you ready to put this hoodie to work here?
This lineup is going to be so trash.
They're going to hate it. They're going to hate it so much. But that's
right.
what we're going to do.
Can we kick this thing off with the captain?
Yes, of
course.
Because
I flag planted him on the Establish the Run show. Age model, 32-year-old tight end who's getting targeted on like 20. Got a 21% target rate. Has been absolute trash for a majority of this season. Posted back-to-back 3 for 27 box scores. With Derwin James banged up, with the Chargers willing to give it up a little bit to tight ends, more so than normal. I think we kind of see a vintage Travis Kelce game, 2 touchdowns. I think he reminds us that he's still the fantasy tight end 1. So yeah, Travis Kelce, a captain to kick this thing off.
All right. I love it. I love it. I am going to, I will lean on the Sims here with our favorite flex play relative to ownership, and I'll toss Darrell Williams in here.
Beautiful.
I'm going to kick it back to you because I want this to have more of your fingerprints on it than mine.
Yeah, we started with 2 Chiefs. We think Travis Kelce's going to score 2 touchdowns. We like the leverage that we're getting, a low-owned flex play relative to how often he's landing in the Sims. Why don't we just lean into a Chiefs heavy build here and just kind of assume that they go out and smash? Maybe Kelce gets his tutties early and they keep the Chargers do keep it close enough, but why don't we pair Darrell Williams with Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
I like it. I like this a lot. I assume most people are not going to want to use these guys in tandem, but I've been watching Chiefs games, and from what I understand, Darrell Williams makes a sick touchdown catch every week now. So, I mean, I think both, and you talked about in your article how the Chargers do basically beg you to run the ball.
Yeah. Yep.
So with this construction, let's just talk this out. Are you more inclined to correlate almost this like a Chiefs defensive play, or with Travis Kelce and captain, do you feel like you should have Mahomes with that?
So we're gonna need one of Mahomes or Justin Herbert. It's just so unlikely that both of those guys land outside the top 6 overall scorers, and you're going to need that just raw production. So I think the way that we're building this thing out, Darrell gets a lot of his value from pass catching. Obviously, Kelce, we're projecting to get a lot of his value from pass catching and produce a slate winning type score. I think we got to pair him up with Mahomes and then kind of figure out from there if we just want to lean into a true Chiefs heavy build where, they maybe just kind of put it to the Chargers, or if we think that we can get a couple Chargers coming back on the other side.
What's your lean here with this?
So I say we go Mahomes.
Yeah.
And then kind of see what we're working with salary wise. Yeah. So I think we can kind of get, It depends on if you really want to lean into that Chiefs heavy build and like pair them up with the defenses, the defense, and then see what we got coming back. I'm sure that's going to leave some salary on the table, maybe.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I'm
then we
gonna
just jam in
toss.
Keenan
Do we
or
just
Ekeler.
jam in Keenan here?
Yeah, I think so. We got 1,100 on the table. We got a Chiefs 5-1 build, so we just think they kind of go out and smash. Maybe we get a couple sacks from that Chiefs blitz that everyone's so scared of. The Chargers are missing 3 offensive linemen. Yeah, I mean, if you guys dupe us on this one, you're crazy.
So, I'm plugging this into my stuff, and I think there's going to be a few dupes, but not a ton.
Okay,
on it.
I can live with that.
I do just actually want to see it. And I'm sorry I'm being cagey here with my stuff, but I'm updating my spreadsheet. If we do Ekeler, we take it down. Like we get rid of 1 dupe if we toss in Ekeler.
1 less dupe is the lineup.
Is not enough.
No, it is enough.
It is
it's plenty.
Okay.
That is more than enough.
All right, I think
don't
we
want to
do
be
it
duped at all.
I think we do this. The problem is with this trying to guess dupes thing is we're doing this in front of an audience of 190 people right now.
Please, we're begging you. We're begging you. That's a good sign. This is
the goal, is building a lineup so gross that people don't want to dupe us. All right. I feel good with this one. Thanks
for the 500K, Pete. I mean, this is going to be great.
Yeah, no, it's great. I saw that you were, in the process of building a new home. I know you have a new child who's about to turn 1, and I think this will be a great stimmy for you and your family.
I really appreciate it, man. This has been a fruitful endeavor.
That's right. So Cody and I, we actually have the Establish the Run holiday party tonight. So we're going to bounce over there. We wish you guys all the best of luck. You guys have heard me reference Cody's article on this show a lot because it's something I read as I'm getting ready for all of these showdown slates. Cody, anything else, coming up other than, the playoffs are going to just be showdown season right and left?
No, it's getting crazy. We got hopefully Saturday slates. Who knows what's going on with COVID? We'll kind of take that day by day. But yeah, just check out all the work at ETR between the shit posting on Twitter and annoying posts on Twitter. I try to post some actual showdown information as well. So if you aren't following me yet, at CMain7 on Twitter. But more importantly, check out the work at ETR.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll have to run this back for we'll find one of the fun playoff slates perhaps and get you back on here because this was a very fun time.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Good luck tonight. Enjoy the game. Please, we are both absolutely begging you. Do not dupe us, bros.